G'day, Ben from Duck Playing Chicken here, and I have started the painting of the 3 Mecha Collection Yamato kits that I'm working on. Now when I decide how I'm going to go about priming, I always look at obviously the colours I'm going to use. And so colours like red and yellow are notoriously difficult to paint because the pigments or the paints tend to be a little bit transparent. So in this case I have primed the edge of the wings white, and I just use SMS Surface of White, which is a lacquer based acrylic paint. And so that means that even if the yellowy orange is a little bit transparent, I'll get better colour coverage. Now for the rest of the falcon here, I've just primed it in black. So again, SMS Surface of Black. And looking at the colour breakdown, we've essentially got the orange yellow, which I have done a custom mix because the yellow that I have is not quite warm enough. So I've just added a hint of red, and so that gives me this nice warm yellow colour. For the green, I have chosen a combination of these two. I've done a custom mix of green and British Interior. And of course, if I'm not happy with the colour, I just paint over it again. So that's my custom mix for the green. For the dark grey, I'm going to use German grey. For the light grey, I'm going to use this haze grey. So that's my colour selection. What I'll end up doing is starting with the yellow accents first, and then I can start the masking process and get sort of everything else masked up and painted. So that's the Cosmo Falcon. Painting the Zero. Again, I have done some priming. Nose piece here. Just started with the SMS Black Primer. Then I can mask that area off and worry about getting the red down. For the yellow accents, it's a bit difficult to see, but I have actually put down a white primer over just those areas. And the colour selection on this one's pretty straightforward. For the red, I'm going to be using Insignia Red. For the yellow, I'm going to use the same mix that I am using for the Falcon. And for the metallic finish, I'm going to give this stainless steel a shot. I'm not sure how it's going to look, so I won't really get a good idea until I've at least put the first coat down of how good it's going to look. But I didn't want to go super shiny silver. I wanted something that was a little bit darker that sort of matched the illustration on the box. So I'm not going to go down the path of doing a real bare metal finish. I'm just going to use paint to emulate that effect. So that's the colour selection I'll be using for the Zero. The Tiger 2 has a fairly simplistic colour scheme. So we have sort of a dark grey here. There is a lighter grey on these. I'm not sure what they are, sensors or something like that, but I'll probably end up using the same dark grey. We'll see how it goes. For the orange, I am going to be using SMS Orange. For this dark grey, I'll be using dark grey. And then for the light grey, I'm just going to use some US medium grey. I've done some of the initial painting of the kits. And essentially what I've done is started with the lighter colours first, so I can mask them off and then prime the rest of it and use the sort of overall colour. So I've got these yellow components here, light grey. I'll mask them off and then I can do the green. So I wanted to show you just quickly the techniques I use for masking. I recently bought a new product I haven't used yet, which is the Mr. Hobby Mr. Masking Sol, and this is the version R. The previous version that I've used, it's essentially a liquid latex rubber masking fluid, But the previous version of this stuff that I used was, I'm not sure what the main constituent of it was that kept it liquid, but this is water based, whereas the previous version wasn't. So evidently you can thin this stuff with water. So I'll be interested to see how well this works. So I use this stuff for things like this, where I've got one of the missiles, and what I literally want is just that tip to be yellow. So I want to mask that off. And I'm literally just going to dab this on. So what I'm doing is just making sure to go all the way up to the panel line. So you can see I've dipped the end of that missile into the masking sole. So now I can get on with painting the rest of it the colour that I want. For pieces like this, where I've got this light grey area that I want to mask off and then paint the rest of it green, I'm going to use some Tamiya tape, and I'm going to use the panel lines that are there to assist me with cutting where the masking goes. Lay this down, and then what I want to do is I want to use a toothpick or a sharp point to pick out where that panel line is. So I want to burnish it down, and that'll help me when I want to guide my knife along to cut the tape. Alright, so I've burnished that down, and I've got an indication of where that panel line is, so I can use the knife to cut it. Now, normally when I'm doing masking, you can use just like the Tamiya craft knife, but what I like to do is use a brand new scalpel blade. So I use number 11 blades, nice sharp point, and that way you don't have to force the cutting of the tape. It's almost just the, just the weight of the blade that you use to follow the path of the panel line. Okay, so let's see how that came up. So there we can see we've got a nice sharp delineation that follows the panel line, and that means the rest of this I can paint green. Now this gully that goes down the middle here, this just holds one of the stabilizers, so it doesn't really matter too much if it's not masked properly, because it will be covered. Now these little fins here, I think are supposed to be different colour. So if we have a look at the picture here, we're sort of talking about this area, and I think I might, I don't know whether it's worth masking that off or hand painting it. I'll have a look and see. Might be able to burnish this down. Sort of see where the outlines are that I need to cut in order to mask that off as well. So that's essentially the two main processes I'll be using for masking. Mr. Masking Sole, and also just Tamiya tape, and it just takes a hell of a lot of patience. I've completed the initial round of masking for all three of the kits, and here you can see an example of just using Tamiya tape. Looks messy, but it'll be perfectly functional. This is the masking for the Zero, and of course it's all yellow that I've sort of masked off, and then the rest of it will be, I'll paint a black primer and then do the silver. And just to show you the liquid masking, how that looks. Now it appears that on the very tips here it looks as though it's not covered or not, so it'll be interesting to see how it works. An update on the painting progress and the masking. So the Falcon is probably a really good example to show off. I've started off with the white primer and then put yellow down, and then masked the leading edges of the wings here. The tail pieces, these are actually a light grey, so I've painted those and masked them off. So we can see by the illustration here, these light grey areas. At the front, it's probably really difficult to see, but there's actually two very small dabs of masking salt on the points here for the light grey pieces on the nose. I've painted the dark grey, so now I will mask that off. I'll mask the dark grey at the back, and then I will coat it in black primer and do the green over the top. So that's just to sort of show you that it is a, you paint a bit, you mask, you paint a bit more, then you mask, so it's just that sort of ongoing process. The other thing I wanted to show was what I'm going to do for the canopies. So it's probably a little bit hard to pick up on camera, but obviously the canopies are pretty much black, but I've put a gloss coat over the top of them as well. The other thing that I've done that's very subtle, so I just used the surface of black, but the subtle part of it is that I've used a clear green over the top. And you only pick it up in certain light, but it does just help to give that sort of impression that it's not just a black surface, that it is kind of a glass, a tinted glass. And then over the top of that I've used a super clear, so this is just a high gloss varnish that goes over the top of it. And of course I will need to mask the glass components of the canopy so that the structural pieces I can paint in the body colour of the fuselage. Alright, more masking and more painting. Time to unwrap the presents and all the masking that I've done and see how rubbish it is. The only exception is the canopies, which I'm going to leave masked until I've actually gone through and done the matte varnish. And the reason for that is because I've got the gloss underneath for the glass on the canopy. So the canopies are the only things that I won't be taking the mask off, but I'm starting with the Falcon here. And I probably don't need to show you everything, but at least you'll get an idea of how well the masking went, and I can show you potentially some different results depending on what masking technique I used. So first of all, these are done with tape, just Tamiya tape. Now, as far as the colours that I've chosen, I'm still not sure about this green for the Falcon. I think it'll be fine, but it was really hard to sort of match. If I show what it sort of looks like, you can see this is actually a lot darker than what they've represented in the image there. I think it may lighten up a little bit with a matte varnish, but I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, it's a nice enough looking green, so if it's not perfect, it ain't perfect. Now, I've already taken the masking sole off the missiles, and you can see we'll need a little bit of touch up. So the masking sole worked perfectly fine. It's just really hard to get a nice sort of straight line out of it. These little fins, again, it's just done with masking tape. And of course the Falcon has the green and the two tones of grey, so it's got like a lighter grey and a darker grey, which almost looks black on camera, but it's not, it's just a dark grey. And the great thing about using lacquer-based acrylics is that since I've started using them over water-based ones, I've not had an issue with paint lifting. And a lot of this stuff I've actually painted and literally 10 minutes later I've masked. So it is certainly a lot better way to go. So here we can see we've got the two greys. There's also some dark grey on the nose. No, it doesn't stink. It's on the actual nose. Alright. but that's come up pretty clean. The irony is that the Falcon's probably the least interesting looking, just as far as the colour scheme that I've gone with, but it was actually the one that caused me the most grief. So all sorts of troubles mixing the green paint. I actually painted this several times with different versions and couldn't quite get the mix right. So I sort of ended up settling on this colour here. But I think it's, yeah, until I get the matte coat down I won't know how far off it is. I'm getting good delineation of colour. There's no bleed, which is another advantage of using lacquer based paints. As soon as they hit the surface they dry so quick, they don't have a chance to necessarily bleed under any mask that you make. Yep, that's come up pretty good. Pretty happy with that. Now, there's several parts of the masking of the front of the Falcon. There's actually 2 greys and a black anti-glare strip. There's the anti-glare, which is in black, and then there's a dark grey. It's probably really hard to tell on camera, it's probably not going to be that clear, the difference between them. But there's basically the dark grey, black and the light grey. So I am very happy with that. So far the only sort of masking issues I've had is where I've used the masking sole, and it's just because it doesn't give as clean a line as the tape. There we go. Very happy with that. Alright, remove the masking from the rest of them. Time to unmask the Zero, and I must say I love this colour. This metallic is fantastic. It's almost like a warm sort of silver. So this is the SMS stainless steel. Like all their paints, sprays beautifully. Just a dream to use. And I think this will really play nicely with the yellow and the red. I've already unmasked the anti-glare strip on the nose, and really happy with that red. Got a nice clean and black shape there. So now it's just a matter of pulling the masking off everything else, seeing how it looks. Yep, that's a nice contrast, that is. Now these colours are pretty vibrant at the moment, but they will get knocked back a little bit once I put a matte coat on them. I will be putting a matte coat over the silver. I'll just be doing it lightly, so it'll be almost like a satin finish. And the reason for that is because when you look how shiny this is, it's not really in scale, I don't think. I don't like having super shiny metallics when we're talking about something at this sort of scale. If it was 1/48 or something like that, might be a bit different. Yeah, happy with that. Good, clean, strong lines. It is very satisfying when you pull the masking off and you find that things go the way that you wanted them to. I spent quite a few hours on the masking of these pieces, So probably for all up, I've probably spent 5 or 6 hours just masking. So it is time consuming, but it is worth it, I think, because I've attempted to do a lot of this stuff hand painting before and really sort of struggled with it. So for me, it's worth putting in the hours of masking. And more often than not, I get the result that I'm after, even if I have to do a little bit of touch up. Very happy with that. It looks awesome. Okay, I spoke too soon. So the first little problem is here. I'm probably not going to worry about that too much, given that it's on the... Yeah, it's happened on the other side as well. This is on the underside, so you can see the doors here where the undercarriage should come out. So I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue. And I think by the time I get a panel line wash in there, it's really not going to matter that much. But that was a bit of a miss, that one. That's alright. This one I'm probably a bit more concerned about, given that it's on the top. Looks like that one's come up okay. Yep. That's pretty good. Now for the exhaust, I did sort of a little bit of a, I guess a feather to black on the end of it to look as though there'd been a bit of carbon deposits or whatever. Yeah, and we're going to be able to get this out. So normally when I do this stuff, I stuff it with tissue that's damp tissue, and it tends to sort of pack in there really well and works pretty good as a mask, except the problem is I've got something going on in there. Okay, so here we've got a bit of a problem. Inside the cone here, what I did was I used poster paint to light block it, and of course I've stuffed damp tissue down in there to block it up, and as a result that's reactivated the black paint that I used, and so all the paper's actually sort of stuck in there, so I might have to... Yeah, I don't know, it doesn't look as though it's going to scrape out too well. So I might have to get in there with a file or something. Yeah, okay. Definitely spoke too soon about the masking, but that's alright. I've never made a model where everything's gone exactly as planned. It just doesn't happen. Alright. That's a little bit messy on the wing there. It's just outside the panel line, so it might look a bit strange when I get the panel line wash in. I want to be careful too of these sharp bits that stick out, because they are likely to break. Touch wood, I haven't broken them yet. Yeah, I do definitely love these lacquer paints. I remember I'd have to hold my breath every time I took a mask off using water-based acrylics. So this is a nice change. Alright, winner winner, chicken dinner. Alright, so that's the Zero pretty much unmasked. I've got to clean up that exhaust. Not quite sure how I'm going to do that. And then I will come back and do the Tiger 2. Time for some unmasking of the Tiger 2. Now, starting with the canopy area, the only thing I'm going to unmask is the anti-glare strip. I want to leave the glass masked up because that's got the gloss coat. The problem is the canopy, I won't know how well that sort of mask holds up until the very end. So fingers crossed, it worked alright. These missiles, I've used the masking sole. So it'll be interesting to see how well this actually worked. Feels pretty tough. This stuff is definitely a lot messier than using tape. In some respects it can be easy to apply, but it's a bit more tedious to remove. You want to make sure you remove all those little bits of the masking fluid, because it gets stuck in all the little panel lines. I've still got a bit of work there to get rid of that stuff. I'm not even sure what's happened here. It looks like the mask didn't actually go all the way down. Oh, maybe it did. It's just very sticky. I do actually like the new formula as far as the application goes. It seems a bit easier to manage than the previous formula for the microsol, but I've got problems like that where I've just taken a layer of paint off. Anyway, you don't need to see me mess around with that. I'll do some of the more interesting ones. Okay. Yeah, it looks like that was nice and clean. This has the tiniest bit of orange on the nose. And this is a classic case where you really need to use liquid masking as opposed to tape. There was no way I was going to get tape on that. The only other alternative was to brush paint it on, which with lack of paint sears a bit problematic sometimes. It sort of looks like there'll need to be some touch up there, but it actually doesn't, because the cockpit piece will cover that up, so that's actually come up alright. Okay, there we go. So I'll unmask all these missiles, clean up the masking solution, and a little bit of touch up here and there. It's not actually as bad as I thought it would be, and so the next step is to put a gloss coat on everything so I can start looking at panel lines, decals, and the thing I'm dreading the most, the stickers, to see how I can make them look as good as possible. So that'll be next. I've gloss coated all the pieces ready for the panel line wash, and for something like this I don't want to just use straight black as a panel line wash. I think that's probably a bit too much. So what I want to do is make my own, and I'll be using Tamiya's XF27 black green. So this is an enamel paint, and I'll be using this and thinning it down substantially to make my own panel line wash. Give this stuff a good shake. What I've got here is just a small medicine cup. I'm just going to get a little bit of this enamel paint in there and then thin it down substantially with some X20. So this is the enamel thinner that I'm using. I'm just using an eyedropper to take it out of the bottle. Okay, so now that I've thinned that down, I'm going to siphon it into something that's going to be a bit easier to store this stuff. Alright, so now I've got it in a bottle and give it a really good shake. Any enamel paint sort of put in within it will separate out over time, so before you use the stuff you just want to make sure that you're giving it a good shake. Putting it into a suitable receptacle so that we can start brushing it on our model. Usually have a bit of thinners here that I can wet the brush in as well. Alright, so I'll just dampen the brush first and draw off the excess just with a bit of paper towel. Now you should be able to see how well this has actually worked. Hard to see with that shiny surface, but it is actually picking out some of the details. It's just quite subtle, which doesn't bother me that much. So I'll go through and do the panel lines on the rest of the pieces. So normally I'll do this, I'll leave it for maybe an hour or so before I do the cleanup, just to give the enamel a chance to sort of set a little bit before we start wiping it off. Okay, time for stickers. I'm really not looking forward to this. I definitely prefer water slide decals over stickers, but that's all I've got. I did have a look for third-party water slides and no luck. What I do is I cut around the sticker as close as I can to the edge of the graphic. You'll see with this one that I'm pointing at now, it's got a bit of a rough edge to it, and you might see I've actually already cut the film around the edge, and it's a bit rough, but it's still going to look better than if I've got that clear bit of film around the graphic that's actually going to sort of look cloudy. The other one that we've got is this white one, which is very hard to see, but it's going to go on the tail, and I've actually already done one of those so you can sort of see what it looks like if we can get in focus. So I have cut as close to the edge of that text as possible. There's still the tiniest bit of area under the A and in between the 003 where it's a little bit cloudy, but I reckon by the time I put a matte coat on it, it probably won't be noticeable. But I have literally cut right up to the edge of the text, and I've burnished it down as hard as I can with a cotton bud. Now, the biggest problem that I had is you probably notice it's not exactly straight, and so once these things go down they actually stick really well, and I sort of started to pull it up and it was just going to be really ugly, so I thought nah, I'm better off having it slightly crooked. You're probably not going to notice once it's on the plane than having it sort of all messed up or not having a graphic there at all. So for that particular graphic there's I use obviously just a straight blade, but another thing that's really handy is these curved scalpel blades. So this is a number 10, I think. Yep, number 10. Just some Swan Morton blades. And the good thing about these is you've sort of got this point here, but you can actually sort of, you know, go with the curve of the knife. So, for example, if I go right on the tip of the end here, I'm just going to roll the knife. Now the other problem you have with the stickers is when you cut them, they will actually rise off the film a little bit. So I've just found that this particular blade is really helpful for getting in nice and close to the graphics. So I'm going to give it an attempt of trying to do this on camera. We'll see how we go. Just rock the blade back and forth, like what you would do with photo etch. And I mean, this of course is only really good on straight edges. It's no good to you on a curve. I might show you what I do with the curves in a minute. So even the angle of the A, I will cut and follow that angle of the A. Again, probably a bit hard to see on camera. Oh, we can see, okay, this is a problem too. It's just lifted off the sheet. So I'm going to try and put it back on because I haven't finished cutting it yet. And I don't want to get stuff underneath it. I even prefer rub down transfers over these things, and they've got their own sort of set of problems, but we deal with what we're given. And what I'm going to try and do is attempt to remove all the film around it so that you can actually see how close a cut it is. Okay, after a lot of stuffing around, that is now cut as close as possible to the edge of the graphic. So now it's a matter of very carefully and to get an idea where the other one sits. So sort of, it's not burnished down yet. I've learnt my lesson from the previous time, is to just make sure it's nice and straight before I burnish it down. Yeah, so I think that's reasonably straight. It's close to matching the other side. So the next step is to get a cotton bud, and I use these ones here that have got a bit of a sharper point. And starting from the middle, working my way out, squeeze out any air pockets. Now unfortunately the placement of these stickers, they also go over a couple of panel lines, so that just adds to the complexity of it. Now I know Jim will have the same issues for some of the kits that he's doing, because like me, he's got a couple of kits that have these stickers and not water slide decals, but you can see it again. That you can see the border on it. It's maybe not coming up that clear on camera, but I can see it, and hopefully once a matte coat goes down it won't be as bad, but it's certainly better than just sticking with the area clear around the graphic. That will just stick out like a sore thumb, especially on darker areas. If you've got white, you can tend to get away with it a bit better, but for darker colours you really need to cut as close as possible. So the next thing I'll do is I'm going to just grab one of the round logos that I have cut out previously. So there you can see the film that I've already cut out. Now I need to get the orientation right for this. So the logo goes there, and again this goes over a couple of panel lines. That's really annoying, because I don't think there's any way with stickers to sort of get them to sit in the panel lines properly. Well, not that I've come across anyway. So I think we just have to try my best to burnish it down. So we got located. Oh, that's where it's going. That's a problem. Once it grabs, it grabs. So what I need to do now is just make sure the other side I get it lined up in the same spot. That's a bit unfortunate, but anyway. Again, so we'll start from the middle, working our way out. And trust me, from experience, once it's sort of stuck on the surface, you do not want to lift it up again. You'll just never get it to bed down on the surface. I mean, once they're down, these stickers, they do hold pretty well, but you can see there's no clear film around the edge of that logo. So even though it sits a bit proud of the model, once a matte coat goes on it, it's going to be a little less noticeable. Now one of the worst ones is this little number here, the little number designation goes on the side of the cockpit there. That's going to be an absolute nightmare. I'm not looking forward to doing that at all. Just when I didn't think the sticker situation could get any worse, of course it did. So these small logos that go on the side here, they actually cross over a seam line. So the bottom and the top of the fuselage, yeah, if we can get it in focus, there is a seam line that goes right through that sticker. And of course I need to pull the two halves apart to actually do the lighting once I've painted everything. So what I've done is I've squeezed the two halves together, I've applied the sticker and I've burnished it down, and the next step is for me to very gently cut and follow this seam. And I am literally just using the weight of the blade to cut the sticker. I need to ensure that that sticker is cut all the way through, because when I pry these two pieces apart, if they're not, if it's not severed properly, I'm going to be in a world of hurt. So I think I've already done this side, but I'm just going to check. Alright, so the aim now, of course, is to try and pry these pieces apart without ruining the paint. Okay, so you can see that sticker's split alright, and so is that one. Okay, so that's good. But just a warning, if you're planning on building this kit, that there are these stickers that need to be cut in half. The other ones have sort of gone down okay. They're a bit skew with, but it is what it is. I'm too used to water slide decals where I get that level of play in order to fix things up if they come apart. But now I've got to be very careful with these. You know, get that matte coat on there as quick as possible, and that should sort of seal it all in. But there you go, another nightmare with using stickers. I've chosen this one first because I knew this one had the more complicated stickers. I think the Tiger 2, touch wood, will be a little bit more straightforward, less circles to cut out. So they do give you a couple of spares, so you get 2 spares, the logos that go on the wing, and 2 that go on the side of the fuselage. You also get some spare numbers which are difficult to see there. However, you do not get any spares of the logo that goes on the tail here. So just bear that in mind, you don't really want to stuff that one up because you got no spares. Stickers, decals completed, matte varnish over the top. I'm pretty happy with the results, and I just wanted to highlight some of the things that, you know, maybe didn't go so well, but also some things I'm pretty happy about. First of all, staying with the Tiger 2, I do love this combination of the orange and the grey. That orange just really pops. It's not coming out on camera as good as in real life, but I'm really happy with that colour combination. The other thing I'm pretty happy about is the way the canopy came up. It's a little bit rough, there's a little bit of sort of stippling on there, but it's come up pretty shiny. The mask on it was reasonable, it's not perfect, but it certainly looks the part. So I think that was probably better than trying to paint it, you know, green colour or something. Now this was the Tiger 2 had water slide decals, and you can see there's a little bit of silvering that's occurred there, which I think is my screw up. I think I probably should have put a bit more microsol down. over the top of it, but from distances. And I mean, you know, the small UNCF logos, they're nothing really over the top. You know, this one actually had a very basic sort of scheme. And the cockpit, of course, this will go over the top. Like that. That's come up pretty well, I think. So Tiger 2, I'm pretty happy with. Love the colours. Next is the Falcon, which has its highlights and lowlights. I'm still not really happy with that green, but it is less offensive than some of the other original greens that I put down. I think I'm going to have to live with that. Now the stickers on this kit, I wanted to show you what they look like after they'd had a matte varnish over the top. Oh, trying to hit the camera here full. So here we go. You can sort of see near where those panel lines are, you can still see the fact that it's a sticker. But the fact that I've cut it so close, you know, from a distance, you're not actually going to tell. It almost looks like a decal. So I'm actually pretty happy about the ones on the tail. The ones on the wings, yeah, not so much. I mean, they're as good as I could probably get them. They still look as though they're raised on the surface. They don't look painted on. And also the fact that they're slightly crooked, just because I had one shot to sort of put them down on the bottom as well. So not really happy with those. But one thing I am happy with is the panel lines that I did. They're you know, not just straight black, so they've come up sort of reasonably subtle, I think. I used a sort of brown, watered down brown enamel on the yellow parts here, and I think they come up okay. So, you know, again, there's sort of good bits and bad bits, I guess. You know, the canopy, again, reasonably clean masking. It isn't perfect, but I think for this scale it's going to be fine. One thing I do really like is the way the missiles came out, just hitting them with yellow on the tips there makes them sort of really pop. So I'm happy about having the missile doors open and having those missiles exposed. That's a good one. So for the Zero, I'm really happy with the way this came out. I knocked back, I think I said in the previous section, I said I wasn't intending on having a real high gloss finish on the metallic, and so I gave a light coat of matte varnish, and I reckon that sort of come up okay. Again, the canopy, you know, it come up okay. It's not as smooth. There's a little miss there. Oh no, that was just a bit of dust on it. So I think that's you know, and I like that warmer yellow on it. I reckon that came up a treat. Now the stickers on this one were a bit more problematic. So it had a couple of stickers that were on the tail here, and you can see where that's lifting up on this side. There was nothing I could do about that. The other side's a little bit cleaner, but yeah, not as nice as I would have liked. The stickers on this though that did sort of come up reasonably okay is the 01 that's on the nose here. And no, it doesn't stink, it's just on the nose. So let's see if I can get that in focus. So you can see a little bit of the film there, but you got to remember again, these are stickers, these aren't water slide decals. So I actually think it's come up okay. Just trimming them down as much as possible makes a massive difference. And I mean, Bandai continues to release master grades with stickers, and even perfect grades, which I still don't understand. But so even if you're using stickers on those kits, you might want to sort of see how close you can cut them to the edge. Really happy with the panel lining on this. was pretty close to black. It was sort of really dark grey, but I think that's come up alright. Picked out all the details okay. So you know, I like the contrast of the red, and overall I think that's actually come up, yeah, pretty good. Obviously when they're all finished and sort of on a stand, they will they should look okay. That's it for this video. This video's been going way too long. Again, I'd like to thank Jim Chandler for the opportunity to do this buddy build. I'm having a ball doing this. As much as I hated doing the stickers, I'm absolutely loving putting these kits together. I'm really happy with the progress so far, so hopefully when I get the lights in, I don't screw everything up. So go and check out Jim's channel and check out his build. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video where I look at wiring these guys up and putting them on customized bases. So see you then.